Most people are familiar with trying to cram a few stretches in after your gym workout, but the truth is the best way to make progress in your flexibility is to treat it the same way that you do your strength training. You need a plan that you follow weekly, and you need to make steady progress. We've noticed that it's easy to find a good free gym routine online no matter what your goals are, but there's not so many free mobility routines. Usually you just find videos about the best stretches. Until now. This is a full weekly mobility routine that you can start following right now, whether you're in the gym or at home. And to make it easy, we even made a free PDF guide that you can reference for this program. So let's jump in.
Before we get to the plan, let's talk about who this is for. This is designed for anyone to make flexibility gains as long as you're healthy. Whether you're really stiff, decently flexible, young, old, you can still make progress with this routine because we'll show how to scale each of these exercises to your level. Now, I do want to stress the word healthy. This is not designed to get you out of pain or fix anything. Consult a medical professional if you're in that situation. This routine is divided into 2 days, mobility A and mobility B. Let's dive into mobility A.
Mobility A. A1 hang. Grab onto a bar, relax the shoulders, and let the torso be pulled down. Feel like your shoulders are being dragged upwards towards your ears while the rib cage is going down to the ground. Settle in and breathe. Your grip will be challenged. If this is too intense in the beginning, let your toes give you support on a surface. When you've mastered the 2-arm hang, you can graduate to 1-arm hanging, which will be much more intense, so take it slowly.
A2 squat. Lower your heels down as low as you can go with your heels flat on the ground. If you can't get your hips as low as your knees with your heels flat, place something under your heels for elevation. Try to relax into this bottom position. As you get more comfortable, feel free to press the elbows against the knees, prying the hips outward.
B1 couch stretch. Slide the knee back into the corner of the ground and the wall or couch. Then bring the other knee up into a lunge position. Bring your torso upright. If this seems out of your reach at your current level, elevate your knee onto a surface like pillows or yoga blocks. This will lessen the range of motion. Attempt to keep your butt squeezed and avoid arching the lower back. For more, you can raise your arms overhead to add more leverage to the stretch.
B2, Jefferson Curl. Begin with your toes on a ledge with a light weight in your hands. You may begin with something as small as 5 pounds. Start by bringing your chin to your chest and then let the spine curl down, starting from the top. Let the weight pull you down into a deep position, keeping your weight in the front of the foot. Once you hit a position that feels deep for you, reverse the motion back up. The goal isn't to use more weight, the goal is to get deeper into the position. So find a weight that feels comfortable that allows you to go nice and deep.
C1 crab stretch. Sit on your butt and place your hands on the ground beside you. Face the fingers away from you to get your shoulders into external rotation. Lift and open your chest as you lift your hips up away from the ground. Attempt to get your hips to parallel to the ground. You should feel a stretch in the front of your shoulders, chest, or down the front of your arms. If the stretch feels too intense, you can regulate it by simply lowering your hips. This stretch should be very active. Squeeze the butt, core, and upper back.
C2, Elevated Pigeon Hinge. Place your leg up on an elevated surface. Something around knee to hip height would be great. Try to get your shin as close to parallel to your hips as possible. Then, keeping the back straight, reach your head forward by bending at the hips. Raise up and repeat for repetitions. If this position is too challenging, simply lower the height of the surface and place a yoga block or something similar under the knee to bring the knee higher than the ankle. This will reduce the demands on the hip. And at first, let your hands assist you through the motion. The way to progress is to use less hand assistance until you can do the motion hands-free, powered just by your hips.
Mobility B, A1 hang. Perform the hang the same way you did in Mobility A. Try to match your time or even add a few seconds.
A2 2. Straight Leg Hip Hinge. Lock the knees, arch the back, and bend forward at the hips. Place your hands on your low back to make sure you're maintaining an arch. Only go as low as you can while maintaining the arch in your low back and straight knee position. Come back to standing position by squeezing your glutes. Repeat for repetitions. To make a more intense stretch, stagger your stance and focus on the front leg. If you're having trouble with rounding your back, sometimes the staggered stance can actually help you find the arch back position better. And if you want even more, you can always hold a dumbbell in your hand while performing.
B1, wall butterfly. Sit with your hips against the wall elevated on a pillow or yoga block. Feet tucked towards your hips and knees out to the side. Place dumbbells on your knees and let the weight push the knees down. Now push against the weight, raising your knees back up. Repeat for repetitions. The stiffer you are here, the more weight you may need to drive the knees downward. If you don't have weights, you can do this with just your hands, but if you're stiff enough, you probably won't be able to produce enough force to move your knees much. For added intensity, simply sit the hips all the way down to the ground. This will add more range of motion. Working up to lighter weights or even body weight is the way to gradually improve here.
B2, 90-90 hip internal rotation isometrics. Sit in a 90-90 position on the floor. Or, if you're less flexible, place something under the hips to prop up. The leg we are working on is the back leg, the one with the knee turned inwards. Begin by pushing down into the ground through the foot for 5 seconds. Then, place your hand or a weight on top of the foot and then attempt to lift your foot off the ground for 5 seconds. Now, your foot obviously won't move, but the contraction on the side of the hip is what we're after. The higher you prop the hips, the easier this becomes. So start higher than you'd think and try to sit up as straight as possible. Over time, lower the height until eventually you can sit on the floor.
C1, perform the couch stretch the same as you did in mobility A. Hold for the same amount of time or add a few seconds more. C2, butcher's block. For this stretch, we'll use a stick, PVC pipe, dumbbell, or in a pinch, you can even grab a water bottle. Grab the stick with your hands outside of your elbows. From a kneeling position, place your elbows down on a weight bench or a knee-height surface. Keep your knees under your hips. Pull your hands back towards your upper back and let the chest fall downwards. Keep your body in a flexed position with core engaged and shoulder blades protracted. Resist the urge to retract and raise the shoulder blades. A good goal is to get your upper arm in line with your ear while staying hollow. For added intensity, bring your knees back behind your hips. Lifting onto the feet is the most advanced variation. So here is your weekly routine that will show on the screen right now. Take a screenshot and refer back to this video to make sure that your form is correct. If you're unsure of how to read this programming, then make sure to download the PDF where we'll give more instructions on how to use this. It's important to understand that this type of mobility training is much more potent than traditional passive stretching or light yoga. Using more intensity and load when you stretch often results in better and faster results, especially when you are an adult who has accumulated some years of stiffness. But more intensity means that you need more time to recover between your sessions. Remember, it's more like strength training. So how many times per week should you do this? Well, the schedule really depends on your lifestyle and how much energy you want to dedicate towards your mobility training. The minimum is to do mobility A and B once a week, resulting in 2 sessions per week. You can make great progress with just this minimum amount of work. The maximum we'd recommend is to do mobility A and B twice a week, resulting in 4 sessions per week. Just make sure you can recover from this, especially if you're doing other training in sport.
So how do you know which version of each stretch you should start with? The first couple sessions, you may need to take some extra time to play around and figure out which variation is best for you. If you're ever in doubt, choose the regressed version. Trying to progress too quickly is an easy way to stifle your gains. And one of the easiest ways to tell is to just follow the feeling of the stretch. If you're getting a good stretch, you're probably in the right place. If you try the next progression and you don't feel as much stretch, then you're probably not ready for that progression. A quick way to tell if a stretch is too intense is to check in with your breath. If you feel yourself tightening up, try to relax, calm your breath, breathe into your belly. And if you can't, then that stretch is too much for you. Now remember, stretching, just like strength training, is all about making progress. Accumulating more time in a stretch is a great way to make progress. So start with 30 seconds and then try to add 5 to 10 seconds each week. Another way to make progress is to move on to harder variations. But don't rush this. You'll know when you're ready. And when applicable, you can add more intensity or load to a stretch by having more weight or just changing the body position to make it more intense. And finally, a subjective measure of progress is just paying attention to how a stretch feels. If a couch stretch for 30 seconds used to feel like your thigh was going to explode, but now it just feels like a good stretch, that's a ton of progress. And this is where jotting down some notes during your workouts about how something feels can be really powerful.
And finally, the question that always pops up is how long will it take to see results? Now, results will obviously vary depending where you're starting at. But if you stay dedicated for a few months, you will no doubt see some type of progress. You should measure your flexibility in large chunks, say 3, 6, even 12 months at a time. Try not to focus on the day-to-day. It takes time to see progress, but everyone who stays dedicated eventually sees gains. So how long should you follow this program? Minimum 3 months. Don't do it for 2 weeks and say, oh, this isn't working for me. You need at least 3 months. And to be completely honest, I started with these types of stretches maybe 10 years ago, and I'm still using them today. So really, you can keep on using this forever. Now, it is good to cycle off of it, maybe try some other things, but you can always kind of come back to the nuts and bolts here with this routine. So if you like the idea of having a schedule to follow just like this one, check out Move Strong now for a program just like this combined with strength and movement for 90 days. So my question for you is, have you ever followed a strict program for flexibility? Are you going to follow this one? Comment below, let us know. We're also happy to answer any questions about this program. Like the video, subscribe to StrengthSide, as always.